Hi, I'm Brian Graham, Treasury Manager for Connect First Credit Union. Alberta's NDP government unveiled some details about their ambitious provincial climate change strategy last Sunday that included a broad-based carbon tax, the accelerated phase-out of coal-fired electrical generation, and a 100 megaton cap on greenhouse gas emissions from the oil sands. The plan came out just ahead of a meeting with the provincial premiers and newly elected Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Ottawa, and was intended to lay out Canada's position for the United Nations Climate Change Summit that begins in Paris this week. Although there are a lot of details yet to be ironed out, let's take a look at the plan, the implications for Alberta, and some perspective on this global warming crisis. Firstly, what is a carbon tax and what will it mean for Albertans? A carbon tax is a levy paid per unit of carbon dioxide emissions, and it is intended to act as an incentive to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Alberta currently has a carbon levy on heavy greenhouse gas emitters, usually large industrial operations, to encourage them to reduce their emissions intensity, and those that don't reduce emissions or buy offset credits have to pay $15 for every ton over their target. It is intended that the new carbon tax be applied across all economic sectors, covering some 90% of provincial emissions, and charge $20 a ton starting January 1st, 2017, move up to $30 a ton on January 1st, 2018, and then increase in real terms from that point on. While emissions from transportation and heating fuels will be priced at the distributor and importer stages, all of the tax burden will ultimately be downloaded onto consumers. The average household is expected to pay about $320 more for electricity, gasoline, home heating, and other expenses in 2017, an amount that is expected to rise to $470 in 2018. The price of gasoline at the pump alone is expected to increase by about 5 cents per liter in 2017 and move up to 7 cents per liter by 2018, while natural gas will increase by $1.12 per gigajoule in 2017 and is expected to rise to $1.68 per gigajoule in 2018. To offset this, the government expects that 60% of Albertans will receive rebates for some or all of the increased costs associated with energy pricing. The provincial government says the carbon tax will generate an estimated $3 billion annually in new revenue, which could rise to as much as $5 billion in 2030, and that the tax will be revenue neutral, suggesting that it will be returned to consumers in the form of tax credits and cuts. However, it is more likely that the tax money will be reinvested into measures to curb further pollution, such as clean technology and green infrastructure, and used to provide assistance to individuals and families that must transition away from the coal industry. While the big losers here could be the 18 coal-fired power plant producers in Alberta and their employees, who may be faced with a choice of producing either no emissions or shutting down their plants, it is also possible that they could be paid compensation to shutter their plants early, something the government has neither confirmed nor denied at this point. While Alberta has stepped forward to try to control and reduce the carbon footprint of the province's oil and gas industry, facts suggest that Alberta, and Canada as a whole, is a much smaller emitter of greenhouse gases than one would expect after listening to all the academic and media propaganda. In fact, Canada ranks a distant 9th on the list of top 10 total greenhouse gas emitters, behind such places as China, the US, the European Union, and India. Our cumulative emissions from 1990 to 2011 were a surprisingly small 2% of the world's total, with the oil sands adding only about 7.8% to Canada's total greenhouse gas emissions in 2011, which is equal to approximately 0.1% of global emissions. So I guess when we see Premier Notley tell a crowd of about 550 supporters that we need to step up our role as Canada's principal energy producer, we should be glad that we are taking the lead on what has and will continue to be a contentious global issue. But after hearing US President Obama's recent criticism of Canada's dirty oil extraction process, we may also wonder when the large polluting nations such as the US and China will step up to the plate, and when their citizens are going to bear some of the costs of fighting global warming. But for me, I'm just gonna put on my Neil Young CD, sit back and contemplate what a celebrity millionaire expat from California, whose estate is built on land taken from the Indians without a treaty, has to add to the mix. Not a whole lot, I suspect.